Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Wildheir, am I saying your name right?
You are. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Who is Brian Laus, L-A-B-U-S? Does that name ring a bell?
Brian Laus, if I am remembering,
Labus.
if I am remembering correctly, since I had 2 years in criminal, about 2,000 cases assigned to me, I believe he was the first human trafficker case we had in Montgomery County. Am I remembering that correctly, Senator?
Well, he was 25 years old. He was a nursing assistant.
Oh, that's a different case. I do recall that one. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
nursing home. He sexually assaulted one of the patients. She had Alzheimer's. Do you remember how old she was?
I do not remember, but I do know she needed to be in a nursing home and was incapacitated.
She was 93 years old.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First, the channel where we stand unapologetically for truth, justice, and the American way. If you believe in holding our institutions accountable and protecting the innocent, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into today's topic because this one is a doozy. So Senator John Kennedy, a man who tells it like it is and doesn't back down from the truth, just grilled a judicial nominee, Judge Wildheir Weimer, in a Senate hearing. And folks, let me tell you, this is one of those moments where you realize how broken our so-called justice system has become.
He's 25. He gets her alone. She's got Alzheimer's. And he molests her. This meathead made bail. And because he's like a rock, only dumber, he immediately goes out and drives while smoking dope. He gets arrested. And he came before you for sentencing. Do you remember what sentence you gave him?
I do, and my recollection of the facts is slightly different. My recollection is his DUI arrest was after my sentencing, but regardless, you are correct, he had the DUI. This was a negotiated sentence in this case.
What sentence did you give him?
I do not recall the terms of the negotiation. I do remember it was a negotiated sentence, and I do have...
You gave him 11 months and 15 days, didn't you, for assaulting this woman?
If that is what your records show, I have no reason to disagree with that.
And he grinned, according to the news reports. Grinned at you. You remember that?
I do not recall that. I do have recollections of this case, and if I may, Senator, it is a case in which the Commonwealth had...
Yes, ma'am, but I've got to, I don't want you to take all my time telling me about the case, because I've looked at the case. For the DUI, after this meathead assaults a 93-year-old Alzheimer patient, you gave him 11 months and 15 days. For the DUI case, you gave him 3 days to 6 months.
Senator, the DUI was not in front of me. I was out of the criminal division by then, and I believe that went to a judge that took my cases when I was transferred to the civil division.
Ms. Perry, tell me the difference between res judicata and collateral estoppel.
Collateral estoppel is also known as issue preclusion. Res judicata is also known as claim preclusion. In issue preclusion, the question is whether the parties have previously litigated to their merits and finality the same issue, in which case they would not be allowed to relitigate the issue. In claim preclusion, the question is similar, whether the parties have litigated to finality on the merits claims, and they would not be allowed to relitigate those.
Okay. Tell me the legal meaning of present sense impression.
Present sense impression is an exception to the hearsay rule. And in present sense exception cases, it's the general idea behind the exception is that a person is unlikely to lie if they are simply giving their present recollection of exactly what is occurring as it is occurring. And therefore, those statements are allowed to be used in evidence, even though they are, by definition, hearsay.
Very good. Tell me, what is, we all pay taxes on income. I know you do because the FBI checked. They do a thorough background check. And I do too. What is income?
Well, the IRS regulations are extremely complex when it
just
comes
conceptually,
to
what is income?
describing income, but basically it is anything of value that you receive throughout the year. So it could be gratuities, it could be wages.
Well, what if and I'm asking you how you go about analyzing this. Let's suppose Senator Durbin starts a new company and he takes it public. And I decide to buy some stock because I believe in Dick Durbin. And I buy it at 10, and it goes to 20. And I'm feeling all warm and toasty. But I don't sell it. I want to because I think it's going to go to 30 because I believe in Senator Durbin. Can government tax me even though I haven't sold it?
I am by no means a tax expert, and I would like no one to rely upon this tax advice. My understanding is that would be an unrealized capital gain, and you would be taxed upon it at the time that it is realized. But again, I am not a tax law expert.
Why is that? I mean, what's the basis for that?
Why am I not a tax law expert?
What's the basis for that?
I believe the basis for that is that those are somewhat imaginary gains that can rise or fall as the market rises or falls. And so they tax you upon it at the time that you actually realize that interest.
Okay. Gentlemen, I'm sorry I'm out of time. I didn't get to ask you questions, but good luck to you.
Thank you, Senator. Judge Wildheimer, do you want to explain the sentencing in that case?
Thank you, Senator. When we have cases in which there is a guilty plea, in a case like the Labus case, which I do have a specific recollection of, I would often ask for a sidebar and ask for a justification for me accepting the negotiated guilty plea. There have been times that I have rejected negotiated guilty pleas. In that case, there were evidentiary insufficiencies on behalf of the Commonwealth. And when that occurs, it is important for me to make sure that the crime is recognized, and the effect on the victim is recognized, even if it might not be to the same extent as if someone would have been found guilty after a jury and the sentencing would have been exclusively up to me. This at least brings closure to the victim's family, and it brings closure, a recognition of the crime. And for that reason, in this case, I accepted the negotiated guilty plea.
The case in question? A 25-year-old nursing assistant, Brian Laus. This sick, twisted individual had the audacity to sexually assault a 93-year-old Alzheimer's patient in a nursing home. Let that sink in for a second. 93 years old, a woman who couldn't defend herself. A woman who trusted the system to protect her. And what does this judge do? She gives him 11 months and 15 days behind bars. 11 months for molesting a helpless senior citizen. Now, if you're not already shaking your head in disbelief, let me make it worse. According to Kennedy, after this slap-on-the-wrist sentence, Laus grins in the courtroom. He grins, ladies and gentlemen. That's the face of someone who knows the system isn't going to hold him accountable. And Judge Weimer? She claims she doesn't even remember the grin. Really? How convenient. Now let's break this down. Judge Weimer tries to defend her decision by saying it was a negotiated plea deal because of evidentiary weaknesses in the case. She talks about how this was the best way to bring closure to the victim's family. Closure? You call 11 months justice? You call 11 months closure for a 93-year-old woman who was assaulted in the most vile way imaginable? This isn't justice, folks. This is cowardice. This is what happens when our judicial system prioritizes bureaucracy and technicalities over morality and accountability. If you're a judge, your job isn't just to rubber stamp plea deals. Your job is to stand up for victims and ensure criminals pay the price for their crimes. And let me just say, kudos to Senator Kennedy for not letting this slide. He called her out and kept pressing. He didn't let her hide behind excuses. And when she tried to derail the conversation, he brought her right back to the point. This man assaulted a vulnerable senior and got a slap on the wrist. Meanwhile, law-abiding Americans are held to far stricter standards for far lesser crimes. But here's where things get even more telling. Senator Kennedy also questioned another nominee, Ms. Perry, with some tough legal questions. He asked about complex legal principles like residential judicata and collateral estoppel, and even threw in a challenging hypothetical about unrealized capital gains. And you know what? Ms. Perry handled it well. She was calm, composed, and knew her stuff. Now, why do I bring this up? Because it shows the stark contrast between someone who's prepared and someone who isn't. Ms. Perry clearly understood the law and had no problem defending her positions. Judge Weimer, on the other hand, stumbled through her words and tried to justify what can only be described as an indefensible decision. Let me be clear, folks, this isn't just a one-off case. This is a symptom of a much larger problem in our justice system. Soft on-crime policies and weak sentencing are emboldening criminals and leaving victims without justice. How many more innocent people have to suffer before we start holding criminals and the judges who coddle them accountable? And let's not forget the left's role in all of this. The radical left loves to talk about compassion and restorative justice, but where's the compassion for the victims? Where's the justice for that 93-year-old woman? They're too busy worrying about the rights of criminals to care about the people who've been hurt. This is why elections matter. This is why judicial appointments matter. We cannot afford to have judges like Weimer on the bench. Judges who are more concerned about cutting deals than protecting the most vulnerable among us. And let me tell you something else. Senator Kennedy is a hero for standing up and calling this out. We need more leaders like him, leaders who aren't afraid to ask the tough questions and demand accountability. Because if we don't, this country is going to keep sliding further into chaos. At the end of the day, this isn't just about one case. It's about the kind of country we want to live in. Do we want a country where justice means something? Or do we want a country where criminals laugh in the faces of their victims and walk away with a slap on the wrist? Here at America First, we believe in law and order. We believe in justice. And we believe that it's time to take our country back from the bureaucrats and the weak judges who are failing us. If you agree, if you're tired of watching our system fail the most vulnerable among us, then join the movement. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends and family. Let's wake people up to what's happening in our courts and demand real change. Thanks for watching, and remember, America always comes first. See you next time.